Mike, these are very troubled times. How's it been for you as the chairman of the New Saints, guiding the ship through these difficult waters?
I won't say it's easy, but I will say that probably I've taken a pragmatic view. You know, life's, if it isn't COVID, it's some other challenge. I mean, I do think that the world has been consumed by the virus and single-pointed on the virus. And I can understand it's a very worrying time for a lot of people, perhaps made more worrying than it needs to be. But obviously there's a situation, if the NHS got swamped, then everybody's in a lot of trouble. And I think that obviously the severity of this and how there's no regularity. There seems to be millions of people who have caught it, if you look at the numbers. But there's a lot of people who've needed a lot of medical treatment as well. And it's one where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you aren't. But there are also a lot of other diseases out there. And my biggest concern is that we're not now on a roadmap of fear for every little cough, cold or idiosyncrasy that comes out there. I mean, at the end of the day, there is looking at things. I'm a half-full glass man rather than a half-empty glass man. And the positive side of these things, 99.98% of people recover from this COVID disease, which is great. And yes, it does put a lot of strain on the NHS. But it's still now untold what other disasters befall us because of the knock-on effect of all the prior to vaccine issues they've tried to try and contain it. It's an impossible task for the government. I don't think any government is going to get it right. Hiding the population away from everybody just means that country's completely lame duck. The vaccine is the key to getting it resolved, and I think, but also probably I think they should be more bold and had an antibodies test. So if people have got antibodies, do they need a vaccine? Probably not. Do vulnerable people need it? Absolutely. And age and vulnerability, they should be now working 24 hours a day. And I believe the vaccine's been produced and is being manufactured in the UK. And I think we should put Britain first. I think that all those people should be vaccinated. In times of emergency, in war, you requisition things, and I think that we should requisition the vaccine enough to do everybody who so wishes to get one, and as quickly as possible, starting with the most vulnerable first. And then for the UK, we can get on with normal life, whatever normal life looks like for a country, and concentrate on perhaps helping other countries with that vaccine at that point. But anyway, that's my views. We've got a lot of challenges in front of us, and I'm sure that while the world's media is focused on this, there's many other things that's going on behind the veil of this, which probably people should have got to get abreast of. So that's my views on COVID. I just hope we don't turn into a scared state.
And what about the effects on the football club, Mike? Because obviously Welsh football, as we know, has been very much affected by COVID-19. The New Saints in particular, how has that affected us in terms of our daily, ongoing running as a club?
Well, obviously, my feelings of last season. I think it was very difficult for people who are making decisions. But again, I think as a nation, if you are presenting yourself as a professional league, you look at England, they managed to complete their seasons in most formats, and champions and relegation was drawn from it. We have to take a view that, we're a professional sports organisation that provides entertainment, enjoyment and careers for people. And Wales has to make its decision on whether it's going to continue progressing and growing to the professional game, or whether it wants to disappear back to what we'll call the amateur game. But you can't have the best of all worlds. If you take the lesser route, which makes perhaps certain decisions easier, you can't then start complaining when you lose places in Europe, where you lose funding, or you lose this, or you don't get public recognition that the league deserves. You can see that the world has been in a difficult place. I've got to say that as the group of people, the FAW, the representatives of the league, and the actual working parties have managed to come up with, quite a supportive package for the clubs as a whole. And I think that's a testimony that the league has moved on a lot from 20 years ago. I think if we were still where we were 20 years ago, I think we probably still wouldn't have played any games this season, just like many other sports there have been in Wales. So, got to be realistic about it. And yes, a lot of people are affected by it, and we've had, and again, the game isn't just about the young men and women who run around the pitch. We've got to think of the supporters, the spectators, and the stakeholders. So again, and usually they get drawn from the more vulnerable ends of the community, hence where you've got to make provision for their safety. So there isn't a difficult task. So there's no point in just sort of, hey, FAW, you've got to do something about this. I think that probably all reasonable steps have been taken. And I think that probably, as much as, if they called the league now, I would hate that. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't really want to be the benefiter of a league awarded. And that was my opinion last year. And I'm not going to change my opinion just for the fact that we would benefit from that ourselves at this moment in time. But hey ho, we'll cross that bridge if the unfortunate situation does arise. But I'm looking very positively that vaccine is available, albeit probably not enough to go round, and hopefully that by the end of January we should be in a position where the very vulnerable in society can say, hey, I'm now as immune as I can be with the vaccine that I've received. So at that point in time, I think people have to stand up and say, hey, look, life is about risks. We perhaps have to then have some form of phased approach back to normality. And I really do think that Welsh Premier Football should be at the forefront of things that get going again with or without vaccine. Because it does seem to be that young, healthy men and women are not having the same dramatic effects as what it does in perhaps the less active people of their own ages. As you can see, many high-profile players have had it, and they've come through the situation. So, we are an entertainment business, and their careers are on the here. But within reason, I think that we should try and be at the forefront of return to normal, rather than at the back of the queue with where probably the darts and dominoes league will be, because again we also get judged against our nearest neighbours, England, who so far haven't called off their fixtures in any shape, manner or form in this latest round of lockdown. So I'm positive. I think we should take a collaborative approach. We should look at all the stakeholders within the league, and yes, we do have to take some sympathies on clubs who perhaps aren't able to adapt to the challenge that's in front of us. But like all things, we should be judged on what we can do, not on what we can't. So, and that's how the external world will see it. So, I really want to park COVID. I think there's other challenges that we need to look at within the game, and I think that with keeping an eye on the fact that at the end of the day, it is a game. It isn't life. It is life and death. But in the words of, was it Paisley who says, it's more important than these things. And I think that if you look at it, I remember people I've spoke to, and I've been pretty communicative over the lockdown periods, where fans, stakeholders, chairmen, they all want to get back to enjoying the game at whatever position they are in the league. So, roll on February, March, April. Let's hope that we get a conclusion to this league so we can crown a proper champion rather than have it awarded to somebody.
You made reference to the disappointment of last season. Obviously, as the chairman and the staff involved with the club, there was demand for a response from the players. And it's true to say, Mike, that has been received, because as we enter the second half of the season, 17 games played out of a total of 51 points, just 7 drops so far. So as we look at the campaign so far, are you happy with the way things have gone?
Yeah, you mean, again, a good reaction from last season's disappointment. And I think there's been some great games of football. There's always a challenge to keep reinventing yourself as a team. We've started that process. We made some extremely good signings last summer. And they've all three have played pretty major parts in this season so far. I mean, Ryan Astles is a man mounting in defence. He's hardly put a foot wrong all season. Leo Smith's obviously brought a renewed energy to midfield, and that it's going to be one where we're always going to try and bring in the next stream of players. Our policy has always been to try and invest in the younger end rather than going to hire in 30 something plus on their way down players from the game abroad, or from England, or from Scotland, or whatever. But we've been a big investor in having our own players through our academy come through our system, and we lost a few players like Scott Quigley, Connell Rowlandson, who were and they were going to be our lifeblood of the team in those last 2 to 3 seasons, which probably gave the effect why we had the little impact of why it's taken a little time to rebuild from those players leaving. But if you look now and what's rather exciting is the fact Ben Clark, great exciting player, has made his mark, come through into the first team this season. He's probably not much more than 21 years of age, and the young man has made leaps and bounds to now basically becoming one of the regular names on the starting team sheet. So, that's a great testimony to what we're doing within the academy. Which obviously, when you flow down from Scott, Evo, Chris Sargent, and the guys who work under there in the academy are doing such a great job. It's unseen by many, but the club itself recognises what they're doing. And those young men who they prepare for us for the first team are obviously cutting the mustard and making the grade, which makes the club very proud of what it's done, because everyone seems to like the idea of producing their own player, and I think that with the investment that the FAW's put into academies, that clubs should be getting these lads onto the pitch. There's no point in just lip service, taking your €100,000 or whatever it is that we're getting for that, and then not expecting some of that to turn out onto the pitch. And I've got to also say, with the good judgment that the FAW made last summer about the first teams needing to have a certain number of academy trained players within your squad, and ultimately growing that to making starts, I think that's going to continue to bring more young players into the game, and I hope that will also encourage, combined with further FAW belief in our product, well, perhaps they have a quota system for the national team as well. That will really keep talent, one, within Wales, two, develop talent from Wales, and I think that the story of football in Wales will continue to grow. And these are challenges which will take 20, 30 years to see the full benefit of the things that are done now. And some of these things will be outside our lifetime. but just hope that we're laying down the right building blocks for future generations to enjoy the sport and have those occasional tournaments where Wales competes well, just like the European Championships of now, 8 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever that time spell is now. That's history. You know, it still feels relatively new in your mind, and it was a great time. But the fans of Wales want that to happen at every tournament, and that's something which everyone's striving for. So, I mean, Wales punched well above its weight in that tournament. It came out very well accomplished, but we've got to keep on doing it, and that also helps for money to flow. And if some of those players in there have come through the Welsh Premier system and they're still attached to Welsh Premier clubs, look at the difference that will make to the club that has them on their books. Because if that's the player of the tournament, that team could be looking at having not hundreds of thousands of pounds of transfer fee, but millions of pounds worth of transfer fees. I'm not expecting that to happen in the next 2 to 3 years, but we should be building with that as our goal. Every club should be looking to invest in their training programmes with a view that that player can play for their first team, and then from playing for their first team should be able to represent their country, not in some C competition or B competition, but actually make the cut into the national first team, which is seen worldwide in the worldwide tournaments. So that's the ambition, that's the dream, and I'd like to hope that the New Saints Football Club is one of those jigsaw pieces that are pulling their weight for that goal. And hopefully they're a major part of that goal. But at the end of the day, all my fellow clubs hopefully follow that same dream.
And continuing with the theme of players there, Mike, the exciting breaking news that we've announced this week is that the club has signed Adam Roscoe from AFC Wimbledon. That's an exciting capture for the club.
Well, it's something which no club finds very easy to do, is to attract a player while his career is still in the evolving echelons of his career, where he's still only 25 years of age, playing first-team football for Wimbledon in League One, makes that transfer. Hence why we've had to write the cheque for the transfer. We aren't looking at a player who is at the end of their career. This is a young man who's broke into the English game and scoring goals in the English game, has recognised the benefit of being in the Welsh Premier pyramid to continue to further his game. And I think by sharing a little bit more with you, I mean, our vision, we've seen the changes in the European club competition, which is going to start this summer. This is where they're bringing in the second Europa League competition. So this season is a very important season to win the league, because the chance to get into a group stage, whether it's the Champions League, the Europa League 1, or this new competition, has never been so near our grasp. But obviously, to do that, considerable investment needs to be made in the ability to compete. And if you look at what we've managed to do over 20 years, is close the gap from being a participant in round one or the preliminary and going out, to being a club that does expect, or would like to think they should, win round one of the Champions League qualifier. Which, you know, by doing that this year, if we can win the league, it does mean that you're going to have a chance to go then and compete in Europa League 1. And should you fail at that hurdle, still have a bite of the cherry at Europa League 2. And obviously, we have taken the decision that we're going to continue to strengthen our team, not just what's coming through our academy position, which we're very, very happy with, and we know that there'll be new players being offered contracts this summer if they continue to make the grade within the academy. But we're also looking to further strengthen by bringing in what we will call marquee signings. Adam is the first of possibly 3 new signings, which will either be done either within this transfer window or in the summer transfer window, which will help to bolster our first team squad, so that when we come to playing in those competitions in the summer, and hopefully it's the Champions League, but I'd like to hope now with the start we've had, it will be in it, a minimum now of the Europa League. We are in a extremely strong position to compete and to edge ourselves to a more competitive position. I mean, signing a League One striker at his stage of it is hopefully going to show our determination to continue to be the dominant club within Wales. We have got 2 other candidates which we hope we can agree transfer fees with their clubs. Again, those signings coming from significant clubs that are playing in other countries' competitions, but not players who are ending their careers. These are players who the club would prefer for them not to leave the club.
So this sounds very positive, Mike. You've obviously got Adam Roscrow over the line, 2 more potentials even during this transfer window. But does the ambition of the club in terms of signing this type of player end with those 3, or is there then a mid-term and long-term plan to take it to the next level?
Well, remember, I'm a very big believer in my very loyal and successful players. We have a succession planning route within the club, and through our club, providing a player is still on their game, we will try to retain that player within our football club. So it's also important for our players to know that there is succession and there is longevity, because to make the commitment to come and play for a professional football club in Wales, particularly 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, was quite a big decision for them to make, whether they whether they tried to choose to go to conference football, or did they want to stay in the limelight of European football with a view that they may well get a very exciting transfer. So we aren't a club that readily gets rid of players. We're not a hire and fire type of organiser, but we are realistic about the life cycle of a player. I do like to sign players early in their career and develop them, and then if those players don't pass on to clubs with a transfer fee, we've found them a home within our club, doing what they love doing, which is playing the game at the highest possible standard. So, I mean, as you can see, there's very little air gap between many of the clubs in Europe and what we've already produced. If you look at when we've performed in the past against the Liverpools and the Manchester Cities, I mean, the pay gap is tremendous. But on the evening, the performance has not been that far away. So it isn't just about who you bring in. It's about building your culture, continuing your culture. It's a culture of belief, and that for them to want to go beyond what anyone's given them credit for before. So it isn't a matter of just signing up a whole load of new players. And I think you can look at that at Manchester United. They seem to have now started to become a title challenger. But they're the same players that couldn't win a game 8-9 months ago. So it isn't just about they've got to have skill, but they've also got to have mental strength, and they've got to want to play at your football club. And I think that's one of the things which I'd like to hope the New Saints has been able to foster through that time, we do care about our players. We do look after them. They aren't always particularly going to be happy. It's not just, oh, let's say yes. They do have to make difficult decisions from time to time. But when you look at it, the long line of faithful servants for our club going back for the 20-odd years that I've been involved, those players actually want to come back to our club. They hated the day they left. They still see their playing career in green and white. And that still bears today. We've got a list of players who are still avid supporters of what we've done here. And if you look at also the careers of people like Chris Sargent, who've, again, been a great player for us, but as the club's had roles and opportunities, as his playing career has ended, he's managed to move into the management of the academy. Same with Scott and Evo. They've all played at our football club. And we'd like to hope that this transition of people being on that journey with our club goes on for more than just their playing years.